weeknight. It's your news playlist. Top Story with Tom Yamas, streaming weeknights at 7 on NBC News Now. The NBC News mobile app. Get connected to your favorite news shows. For the top stories, breaking news, and live video, download the NBC News mobile app now.
Bottom of the hour now, we're going to stay on top of that breaking news at the U.S.-Canada border in western New York.
NBC News has exclusively obtained this new video showing the vehicle that caused that explosion earlier today at the Rainbow Bridge. If you look at the top of your screen, you can see that car traveling very fast and even appearing to go airborne. At this point, we know 2 people inside that car have died after they crashed at a security checkpoint.
Let's bring in NBC News correspondent Stephanie Gosk, who's been following this. Steph, can you talk about that new video that we're looking at? We can play it again. And what are we looking at in terms of location? Where is this?
Sure. So this is a car that was coming from the Canadian side of the border, Kate, and you can see it appears to, at a really high speed, hit a median and go airborne. As you mentioned, the 2 people inside died in what turned into a fiery explosion, and we have pictures of that explosion. You know, utmost right now, the question on everyone's mind is, was this terrorism? And it is really important to state at this point, we just don't know. We have not heard that from officials. We're being told that they are looking into a motive. What we do know from senior law enforcement officials, and this comes from our colleagues Jonathan Dietz and Tom Winter, is that there was not a second explosion or secondary explosive in the car, but they are looking into the motive at this point. They will obviously have pictures of this car, of the license plate. There's probably a good deal of information that we don't know yet. We also know that officials are being briefed, including President Biden. You also have New York Governor Kathy Hochul and even the New York City Mayor. The Prime Minister of Canada has also been briefed. Justin Trudeau made some public comments earlier, and I believe we have a soundbite from him right now.
Additional measures are being contemplated and activated at all border crossings across the country. We are taking this extraordinarily seriously.
No doubt they are. We know that at least 4 border crossings at this point have been closed. We've also heard from our colleague Tom Costello just about TSA and if they've changed anything, and they have not in any way changed their security profile. But we are just waiting to see and hear more from officials at this point.
Yeah, I mean, Steph, you rightly said there's still so much we don't know. Of course, we heard from the Canadian Prime Minister not so long ago. What is the general sentiment we're getting from officials right now? Of course, this is happening a day before Thanksgiving, as well as during the Israel-Hamas war, so tensions have already been high.
Yeah, I mean, again, wait and see. But you can tell by the list of people who have been briefed on this matter, including the New York City mayor, that there are concerns about attacks, terrorist attacks in this country. We have been, as you mentioned, on that heightened state of alert. You have the Macy's Thanksgiving Day parade that's going to be taking place here in this city. And what we know about that, separate from this, again, it's important to make that point. No one is making the connection at this point. But that there is a heightened state of security here in New York City because of that event. There are no specific threats, although the concern is that there could be lone wolf actors. That's been a concern ever since the war kicked off between Israel and Hamas. The other concern is that Al-Qaeda online has been calling on people to attack Americans as well. All of this, and together with this news at the Canadian border, certainly putting that heightened state of alert, even higher at this point.
Steph, I want to play a little sound that we got in a bit earlier from someone who was an eyewitness who said he saw what happened with his car. Take a listen.
We were walking up the road, and we seen this car coming down towards the border, and he was flying over 100 miles an hour. There was a car in front of him. He swerved out, went in front of the car, hit the fence, went flying up into the air. He hit, I think there was an elevation part. He went up into the air, and we just seen the fireball, and that's all we could see. It was just covered in smoke everywhere. I've never seen anything like this. It was just incredible. The fire was so high up in the air.
So, Steph, there's some, from one person at least, confirmation that it was traveling really fast, and you can tell from that video that we're looking at, too. I guess the thing is, Steph, we don't know why that car was traveling so fast.
Right. I mean, you can only imagine how dramatic it was to actually witness that, to be on the ground and see that. I mean, you could tell the eyewitness a little shaken up over just having watched that car fly the way that it did, and the subsequent explosion. Seeing all that had to have been incredibly dramatic. And here we've got a bit of that explosion. Look, there is a lot of security, obviously, at border crossing. There are a lot of cameras at border crossings. There, for sure, is more video of what happened at that scene, that law enforcement, we know the FBI is there as well right now, that they are pouring over to try to get some answers to some of these questions. And we're just going to have to wait and for their briefings on the matter.
Yeah. Stephanie Gosk for us. Steph, thanks so much.
Thank you. Well, we turn now to the agonizing wait for the families of hostages after Israel and Hamas agreed to a pause in fighting.
The truce is expected to begin tomorrow morning. Here are the key points in the deal. 50 women and children will be released by Hamas. That group includes at least 3 Americans. In exchange, Israel will free 150 Palestinian prisoners. There will be a 4-day pause in fighting. However, it could be extended by 1 day for every additional 10 hostages that Hamas releases.
Hundreds of aid trucks will also be allowed into Gaza. Hamas says the pause will start tomorrow around 3 a.m. Eastern time. Today, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said he spoke with President Biden to thank him for his help negotiating the deal. The Prime Minister adding he has not stopped thinking about the hostages since the war began on October 7th.
Since the outbreak of the war, we are indeed taking action constantly in order to bring them back home, to bring them all back home. And when I say all, I mean all of them.
We've got an NBC News foreign correspondent, Erin McLaughlin, on the ground from Tel Aviv.
Here in Israel, the families of more than 230 hostages are all tonight asking the same question. Will my loved one be released? It's very much on the mind of Hadass Calderon. On October 7th, her mother and her niece were killed by Hamas. Her ex-husband, her 11-year-old son, and her 16-year-old daughter were kidnapped and brought into Gaza. She has not heard from them since. How desperate she is for any piece of information. I asked her, when will she know? And she looked at me and she said, I'll know when I hug her. Take a listen. Do you know how you'll see them?
I don't know even how it's going to happen. I know at the moment I see them and hug them, then I know that my nightmare is finished. Till then, everything is open. It's very delicate and fragile.
Calderon's ex-husband is unlikely to be released tomorrow. This deal is restricted to women and children only, but she says her hope is that this deal will lead to subsequent deals so that her family can be reunited. Now, in terms of what to expect for tomorrow, there will be a pause in hostilities scheduled for 10 a.m. local time, and from there, the ICRC will facilitate that hostage exchange. Hostages will be brought into Israel. Once they are in Israel, only then will their families be notified that they have been released, and only then will the Palestinian prisoners be exchanged. This is expected to play out over 4 days with the possibility of an extension. Back to you.
All right, Erin McLaughlin, thank you. High-stakes drama playing out in the tech industry today. One of the key figures in the world of artificial intelligence, Sam Altman, is back at the company he helped create. Overnight, he reached an agreement to return as CEO to OpenAI, the company responsible for ChatGPT. You remember it was only a few days ago that Altman was abruptly kicked out of the company by OpenAI's board.
And Elon Musk and his social media platform X are facing a major backlash from some major advertisers. Huge companies like Apple, IBM, and NBC's parent company Comcast are all pausing ads on the platform over concerns about Elon Musk and the spread of anti-Semitism on the platform.
For more, we bring in our technology correspondent, Jake Ward. Jake, a couple of really big stories here. Let's start with the controversy surrounding Elon Musk and X, formerly known as Twitter. The company now suing Media Matters, which is a progressive watchdog group, right after it published a report showing that ads on X were being placed near pro-Nazi posts. What more do we know?
Well, at this hour, Kate, we know that, right, this all began last Wednesday when Elon Musk seemingly embraced anti-Semitic conspiracy theories, endorsed one post, and then followed it up with several others. And all of that set off a firestorm of backlash, which led to all of these advertisers pulling out. Now, for a long time, Musk has been complaining that the platform is treated unfairly. He's especially called attention to the Anti-Defamation League and has said that that organization is basically out to get his business model. And now he's taking on Media Matters, who in this new report has shown that time and again people experience certain terrible content next to very well-established brand advertisers. Now, Elon Musk and Linda Yaccarino, a former executive here at NBC Universal and now CEO of X, they say that this is an unfair comparison, that it only happened a few times, that it's not truly a well-established study, but all of that will be sorted out in the future. Media Matters says this is an attempt to bully critics of the platform after a period of showing that real terrible stuff has been moving across it, and that whatever protections used to be in place at former Twitter seem to have been disassembled at X.
And then, Jake, let's dig into the situation with OpenAI, right? Because Sam Altman is set to return to the company soon. This is after he was ousted by the board. Employees of OpenAI did not like that. Microsoft saw him free and said, hey, we'll take you, right? And now he's going back. So a lot of back and forth, but why does this all matter to those of us who have nothing to do with the tech industry?
Well, for those of us, right, who only experience the chief project of OpenAI, and that's ChatGPT, that's the thing for which they are best known. Less well known is that OpenAI was really created to be a kind of alternative company, one that would not be beholden to the standard kind of profit motives that drive a company like Microsoft or Google or any of the other big players in AI. The whole notion was to create this kind of place that was sort of altruistic, right, that was supposed to be motivated by the betterment of humanity. But it turns out that when a fight broke out between the board and Sam Altman over questions around that, and we're not sure exactly what that fight was, but it seems that way, then it all went sideways. Now, Sam Altman has managed to get back into position with a board that he has agreed to, and suddenly he is as firmly ensconced in that place as ever.
Okay, we'll see if it stays that way. Jake Ward with the latest for us. Thank you.
Coming up, the holidays can be a lot for all of us, especially kids. When it comes to gatherings with family and friends, the best ways that parents can make sure their kids feel comfortable watching NBC News Daily.
today's modern parenting, we're focusing on teaching kids how to set their own healthy boundaries.
Whether it's saying no to hugging a relative at Thanksgiving or asking somebody to stop teasing them, it's especially important for kids to understand what boundaries are and what to do if they think a boundary has been crossed. Joining us now is Amy Morin. She's a psychotherapist, author of the book 13 Things Strong Kids Do. Great title, Amy. Good to see you. Let's start with just teaching kids how to set their own personal boundaries. What does that mean?
So we want to tell them that they can speak up and they can say if they're uncomfortable with something. So we might start doing that by teaching them that they have options. So if there's an unwanted touch, they can speak up for themselves. Or they could speak up if they're feeling excluded. It's okay to say, hey, I want to join in. We can also use boundaries to teach kids self-respect. A kid who has really good boundaries know that they can ask for what they need. And they can speak up when something just doesn't quite feel right. And teaching them healthy boundaries also teaches them to respect other people, so that when they're maybe teasing a friend and they think it's funny, but their friend says, please stop, their kid will respect other people's boundaries too.
I mean, Amy, can you give us some practical examples of what it looks like to actually set a personal and physical boundary?
Sure. So we want to teach our kids that it's okay to say, I don't want to be tickled right now. Whether it's an aunt or an uncle who maybe thinks it's funny, if they don't want it, that's okay and they can speak up. Or we give them some choices too. Like you can ask them, do you want to give your aunt and uncle a hug? They don't have to, but give them that choice. And then teach them to use I statements too. So if they're angry or they're frustrated, instead of blaming the other person by saying, you're making me mad, we want kids who can speak up and say, I feel frustrated right now, because they're taking some personal responsibility for their feelings, but also being assertive and speaking up.
And just lastly, if parents want to encourage their kids to speak up, if they do feel like a boundary's being crossed, how do we teach them that?
The first thing is to teach them about when it's appropriate to speak up. We want a child who can maybe speak up to a friend and say, hey, it's my turn, but you don't want a kid who argues with the umpire. So teaching them the difference about when to speak up and when not to is the good first step. And then we also want to make sure that they have specific phrases they can use, like, it's my turn now, or I don't like that, or please stop. Those simple phrases can go a long way toward helping them know what to say. And finally, help them figure out when they should ask a grown-up for help. When they feel like they're unsafe or they feel like something just isn't quite right, make sure that they know they can turn to a trusted adult to say, I need some help over here.
Yeah, and of course, trusted adults like parents can demonstrate those healthy boundaries at home too. What about though if a child refuses to stick to the boundaries you or someone else has set? What should a parent do then?
Well, again, it comes down to making sure that you have rules for your kids so that you can say, well, when I tell you to go to bed, that's not necessarily a boundary, that's a rule. But then you can have boundaries that you set too that might be, when your door's closed, we're gonna knock on it. We're not just gonna barge in. Or if somebody's gonna borrow something in the house, you should ask first. Make sure that we're respecting people's privacy too, and that we're modeling for them how to set healthy boundaries.
Yeah, this all ties back to our conversation yesterday about manners
Yes.
as well. It's all kind of interrelated.
It's all connected.
Amy Morin, thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Getting us prepared for Thanksgiving. And
Yeah.
of course, if you're planning on watching tomorrow's Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade on NBC, there's a musical duo you want to watch out for.
Our Joe Fryer introduces us to